because if you don't have a deficiency of these plant-made nutrients, you'll have deterioration and not as long and healthy a life as if you combine good optimal nutrition with a sane amount of exercise, which is a very old recognition that's been seen ever since biblical times.
Yeah. So basically, what we're saying is that to stay in the wellness zone, you have to take nutritional supplements because our diet and our food supply is inadequate in terms of the nutrients that our cells need. So we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to continue our talk that we started last week about the ingredients of New Eden, which is a nutritional supplement that Dr. Reg has put together. And I just want to start at the beginning. If you're interested in purchasing New Eden, you can use this link. It says www.wellnessquest.org/Earl. If you have questions with Dr. Reg and what I'm going you can just email if you want to talk to him personally, privately. You can email him at R McDaniel, apparently at capital R McDaniel at wellnessquest.org. And these sessions are being recorded. So we recorded last week, and we're also recording tonight. If you would like a link to either last week's or tonight, either email me or Dottie, and we will send you the link. In order to try to get through this, we're going to ask you to hold your questions to the end, or if you want to put it in the chat box, we can see what it is that you want to say. So just to review the New Eden ingredients, this was the one this is the part of it that was covered last week. And this week, we're going to start on these 7. We'll get as far as we can, and we'll continue on to the next session if we don't get through tonight. So with that, Dr. Reg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As a brief review, he showed you those ingredients in New Eden that started 39 years ago when I was a consultant at Carrington Laboratories. It raised $20 million to make a new drug from the aloe vera leaf gel. But with the FDA, we found out it had absolutely no toxicity whatsoever, not only in routine studies, but in extended studies. And we could not give them an LD50. LD stands for lethal dose for 50% of the animals, and a 100% LD dose. And it must be a wide window between 50% and 100%, or they won't let you proceed to the second phase of new drug approval. That should not be a real soothing information for anyone that really totally depends on pharmaceutical drugs. You've got to go through this because the father of pharmacology, Paracelsus' most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose. So we were thrown out of the FDA approval process, and these other things have been added to aloe leaf gel powder that we found out the active ingredient was acetylated mannose, for short, acemannan. And what I've done over the years, 39 now, have added other ingredients that are low, missing, or avoided by choice in our modern food chain. And so this inositol hexaphosphate is a ring structure that looks like a part of a sugar, but it is a sugar, but it has 6 phosphate molecules added on each carbon. And very importantly, the cells cannot utilize glucose or mannose or any saccharide or carbohydrate until it has been phosphorylated, or a PO4, a phosphorus with oxygens, are added to it, which elevates its energy level. That I frequently use the example of a two-wheel trailer that you have to lift it higher than the ball on your connection to your truck or car, just a little up and then let it down. And so saccharides, or the carbohydrates, have to be phosphorylated, and we have this in there because hexaphosphate is an excellent donor in the organic classification. And when you add this to the diet, it helps normalize cholesterol levels, the hormones, and the fatty acids. And it's utilized particularly in the liver, where it's just an incredible organ in our body with all the activity that goes on in the liver to make compounds to run the different organs in our body and the functions of our body. And in addition, this contributes to antioxidant activity, because every cell has a mitochondria or more in it, and it breaks the bond between carbons and carbon dioxide that was made into a chain by photosynthesis, and it reverses this in the mitochondria. But when it moves a little bit of the energy from the sun that's in the carbon bond to a phosphorylated carbohydrate, they are free radicals that have a charge, either positive or negative, that can hook to or bound to membranes inside the cell, and this will make you feel poorly. You don't feel good. But the worst thing can happen is that these free radicals can attach to DNA or the genes, and the order of molecules in the genes is information or code, and the free radicals alter the code, and that's called a mutation. And the worst mutation is anything that causes lymphomas, the cancer, or the sarcoma if it's connective tissue cells. And so it's important what hexaphosphate can do by adding to the molecules. And hexaphosphate supports the immune system to not be overactive, but to be active when it's needed. And it's used in cellular division. And even though when we're adults, the body makes stem cells that migrate out and replace aged, damaged, and poorly functioning cells, and they differentiate just like in the embryo, and that slows down as we get older. But we found out that the active ingredient from aloe keeps this process going as we age. So it's used in the growth of the body, particularly during the teenage years. And as we've said and emphasized, it's a phosphorylation because there's PO4, 6 of them all around this molecule that can add to the saccharides, which have to have PO4 to metabolize. Errol, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I was just looking at inositol. Isn't that the sugar alcohol that's a sweetener?
Yeah, well, no, it's not in the sweeteners. It's not a sweetener, but it's a important structure that if you can have it in your diet, makes everything else work better, because phosphate molecules are attached to many different cells that are substances that the cells utilize in synthesis.
So do we tend to be deficient in the phosphate, or is that why you have to? Is that why you're putting that in?
Well, it's in the organic, in other words, phosphate that's kind of like concrete or stone is not in the organic phase. And so this is already attached to carbons, which makes it more readily available to contribute phosphate molecules to other nutrients that are active in cellular synthesis.
Okay, all right.
Next slide, please. Now, the Diascoria or yam powder is very interesting because a structure that is complex that our hormones are made from, and it's kind of like when in construction you talk about preformed units to speed up construction. Well, synthesis of the cells is speeded up by this complex molecule that's in the jungle yam, which is a variant of the sweet potatoes that grow primarily naturally in the jungle. And it supports hormone synthesis in both the male and the female, because all you have to do is add molecules to it to make the different hormones that are very effective in what goes into cells and what the rate at which they go out. And of course, it's very important in the differentiation between a male and a female, as the hormones are different. The Diascoria normalizes blood sugar levels, and it's utilized in, as I say, in the hormones, which are important to regulate, not just in the breasts or the ovary or the testes, but each cell, the membrane around it is responsive to the hormones, and that's why it's helpful for the blood sugar levels. And certainly it's important in reproduction. Fact is, one of the things that has amazed me is couples that have gone to multiple fertility clinics, and they can't find anything that allows them to have a pregnancy. They want a child, and lo and behold, they get on a dietary supplement that has the Mexican yam in it. And I particularly think of a couple up in Canada that had twins, and how happy they were over this. But this contributed to their ability to be fertile. The yam powder influences the hormonal up and downs in the female, that about every 28 to 30 days, the hormones are going up and down. And this is one of the reasons they think that females are more susceptible to certain diseases, such as autoimmune diseases, because the hormonal environment is changing in the female much more than in the male. As I said before, it speeds the hormone synthesis, because the complex structure in the yam is the core of the molecular structure for all the hormones. And again, the inflammatory process, that you don't want to be overactive to cause asthma and allergies and hypersensitivities, but to turn on appropriately when we have an infection, because inflammation mobilizes cells of response like the white cells, and also soluble molecules that are in the serum that are part of the inflammatory reaction, that you want to be very responsive to the needs of our body. Also, that the yam influences mood, motivation, and energy. This is because of the general effect of the hormones on all the cells and all the organs. So that really gets into optimizing the function of the brain, and it also is utilized in joints and tendons. So you have a question or comment, Earl?
Well, this Diascoria is primarily a precursor for all hormones. Is that an accurate statement?
That's a correct statement.
Okay, so basically, by providing the diascoria to the body then can utilize it to make whichever hormones the body needs.
That's right, and can do it faster and make the metabolism of the cells more responsive to the environment and the needs inside our body.
Okay, ready for the next slide?
Now, the citric acid bonds with minerals and metals, and there are minerals and metals that are utilized in cellular synthesis, but there are also those that are heavy and toxic, and citric acid helps to neutralize them. But citric acid supports better absorption of minerals from the GI tract that are in the food, and the citric acid in the product stabilizes all the other ingredients so that moisture or oxygen is not as quite as active to react with the ingredients in New Eden. And citric acid supports energy production by the mitochondria, and it's called the citric acid cycle, which generates ATP in the mitochondria, and a Nobel Prize was given to Enda Meyerhoff team that recognize this in cellular metabolism, because there's mitochondria in every cell to make ATP to run the energy for our body, not only to move the muscles, but in cellular synthesis to hook molecules together. Do you have a question or comment, Earl?
Well, I'm a little bit, and I see what you've got here, but it bonds with minerals and metals, and I think of minerals as being important in the enzymes.
Definitely.
And so somehow I guess I'm anticipating that there's some kind of connection between the metabolic enzymes and the citric acid bonding with minerals.
Well, citric acid is again in the organic phase, which probably have been better to say minerals and elements, because the body in the Golgi Russian literature is very detailed about the third step in cellular synthesis, that multiple trace minerals are added to enzymes especially, and this shouldn't be too hard to grasp, because, for example, nearly everybody knows that hemoglobin has an iron molecule in it, and hemoglobin does not carry oxygen without that iron molecule, and all the vitamins have a element in their structure. And it's, I think, interesting that chlorophyll, which is so important in the plants and photosynthesis, has a mineral element in it that is, I'm trying to, it's starts with an M. I'm having difficulty with, I guess, old age remembering. But chlorophyll has a mineral in it too, just like iron is in hemoglobin. And in fact, if you see the structure of them in a textbook, they look very similar. That is hemoglobin and chlorophyll in their molecular structure, but they have different minerals that are associated with them that are, for some reason, in the metabolism are necessary for these substances to properly function. Next slide, please.
One of those areas where, once again, we don't really know how the body functions.
Well, it's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Now, the cherry tart powder is interesting, because I didn't really get into the details of how I chose these different ingredients. But the FDA attacked the cherry industry because they put on their label, see our website for the health benefits of cherries, tart powder. And if you get that, and I have a copy of it, and it's amazing, all the different medical journal publications of the health benefits of cherry tart powder. And the FDA says, by telling people this, you made a medical claim for a vegetable, and you only can make a medical claim if it's been through the FDA and been approved as a pharmaceutical drug. So they took this off of their website, but I don't make any claims other than that we add this for nutrition and turn it over to the genes that operate at the element, molecule, and ion level, which is too small to even detect by electron microscopy, and it's too small for human intervention. So it's activity that goes on in the cell that human beings can't participate in or influence. But cherry tart has antioxidant powders in it that we talked about that bind to free radicals, particularly produced by the mitochondria, but there are also toxins in our environment that can cause a problem, and cherry tart binds to them and inactivates them. There's beta carotene, which is an important nutrient that are present in the cherry powder. And I might point at this time, these things that we're mentioning that are in these different plants that there are, if you do high pressure liquid chromatography, you can find out there are sometimes hundreds of nutrient molecules. We don't even know what all of them are, but when you add them into the diet, our cells like them because it improves the inventory that the DNA has to have in cellular synthesis to make all the bioactive compounds correctly. There's also vitamin C in cherry powder. There's potassium, magnesium, iron. There's fiber in cherry powder, which our GI tract needs to properly function. And there's the folate in the vitamin spectrum. It's active in bone and joint function and heart function, the cardiovascular function. It contributes to normalizing blood glucose levels, and it's essential in cell growth, particularly during the teenage years when our body is growing more, and whereas if we get to be adults, it's more of a maintenance function that goes on in the body. Do you have any comment or questions, Earl?
Well, just to, why is it called tart? Is it because it's kind of acidic? It's a
Well, I think of cherries having kind of a sharp taste,
Yeah.
question about it. And it's a vigorous, shall we say, taste of cherries, as say, contrasted to some of your melons.
Well, there are some cherries that are kind of sweet, and then there are other cherries that are kind of tart. Are you distinguishing between those two?
Well, I do not have the answer to that.
Okay.
I do know that cherries, one of the things that they listed is that the problems of uric acid and gout attacks are reduced and helps reduce the pain in the joints and tendons there. That's a thing. And that's one
Very
thing that the FDA really got onto them about is that you can't tell the public that this nutrition that's not a drug is a benefit in gout and in uric acid levels, which the tarts help bring it down to normal levels and reduce the pain in the tendons and joints. Next
Very
slide, please. Now, this is interesting because in our studies at the Miller School of Medicine at the Miami School of Medicine, in cooperation with the Miami Jewish Health System, which has a facility there for elderly patients, which has 150 beds for Alzheimer patients or dementia, and also an outpatient program. It's the largest facility on the East Coast, and they had about 20 years history of working with drug companies, trying to find a drug that's effective in Alzheimer's disease, where people lose memory and cognition. And we not only showed benefits that 46% of the patients improve their memory and cognition by the ingredients that we're sharing with you in New Eden. But the only stem cell, and there are at least 4 different kinds of stem cells, the only stem cell that was elevated, which was nearly 400%, was CD14 monocytes, which I can provide a paper from the University of Chicago where they show that it can become a stem cell. And so, and looking for the other types of stem cells, I found out in the Japanese literature that under the Functional Food Act of Japan, which is called Fushu, they've been going through all the compounds and things used for 1 to 2,000 years in Oriental medicine. And in Oriental medicine, they use lion's mane mushroom for individuals that were losing their memory and cognition. Well, they subjected this lion mane mushroom to modern day scientific studies, and they showed that it generates CD45 stem cells, which are active in the embryo with the formation of the spinal cord and brain and retina of the eye. That was proven in basic science studies. So under this Functional Food Act, you can use this information to take a small group of patients that have loss of memory and cognition. If you can show that this is active in them, you can put that into your information that you share with the public. And so it's been long used in Oriental medicine, and I added it to New Eden just to enhance. And I think if we had $200,000 again in a grant to utilize this with Alzheimer's patients down in Miami, we could increase the 69% of patients, because in addition to the 46% that improved memory, 23% did not progress. And also lion's mane mushroom supports the immune system function to not be overactive or underactive to when it's needed. We point out that it long known to support memory and cognition because of the stem cells. And you can find in the literature that when there is brain surgery or trauma to the brain or spinal cord, that it's CD45 stem cells that do the repair in the tissues of the central nervous system. And that's why it's in there, because of the CD45 stem cells. And I might add that in lion's mane mushrooms, all the mushrooms have a compound that's called L-ergothioneine, which is utilized in cellular synthesis to make dismutase, which is active along with glutathione and a little cloud around mitochondria to soak up free radicals so that they don't attach to membranes within the cell and alter the cellular function, which makes people feel bad or fatigued or lack of energy. But the worst thing that glutathione and L-theanine are able to prevent is free radicals from attaching to the chromosomes and altering the inflammation there, which we mentioned before. Do you have any comments, Earl?
In your research on the Alzheimer's, Was there a threshold level that you needed to take of the lion's mane mushroom powder or yeah,
Well, I may not have made it clear that in the New Eden that we utilized formulation in the study that got 69% benefit, we did not have lion's mane, and that's because we did not generate any by flow cytometry CD45 stem cells. I have added to it with the belief from this body of research done in Japan that we can increase above 69% benefit if we had the money to do the research again with this added to it.
I see. So basically, in the test trials that you used for autism, you used the New Eden without the lion's mane mushroom powder.
Right. That's also, it was a benefit
Now,
important. You mentioned not only Alzheimer's, but autism. Yes, we had benefits with the original formulation in autistic children.
okay. So you actually reversed the conditions in those cases.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
That's
to my knowledge, that is the only thing, but this is not an FDA approved drug, and you can't make claims that
right.
this is a benefit in Alzheimer's
Right.
or autism, because those are CPT words that are in the in a computer program that the is used to determine compensation for hospitals and clinics and doctors. And we can't claim, all we can say is that this will improve nutrition with these various substances, support the biomarkers of memory and cognition, and not mention a disease term.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we are well past our 30 minutes, so I think maybe this is we'll stop here and continue on in 2 weeks. And unless you feel like it's important to talk about the next slide, Dr. Edge.
Well, that's fine. If any of the people listening would type out a question, the
Yeah.
various microphones don't reproduce their voice very well, and I have a hard time understanding them. But if the
Oh, if anybody has a question, did I? Okay, I stopped sharing. You can either put it in the chat box